We're the two teachers.
Welcome to Room to Be, where it's time to get schooled.
We're talking about foundations, the foundations of American government and politics. Today's lesson, how do you change American government? How do you change those sacred constitutional words? Andy, today we're looking at the formal means to amend the U.S. Constitution. But don't lose sight, there are ways to change that old document in other ways as well.
Well, we've changed the document, the Constitution, 27 times. Each one of those times, when it's been formally changed, has used the method of Congress, each chamber of Congress proposing the amendment, which is later ratified by 3/4 of the states. That's how we've changed the Constitution 27 times.
There is another way to formally change the Constitution, however, and that is through the use of constitutional conventions. The states can call for a national convention. In that national convention, they can propose changes, and then the state conventions are called again to ratify those changes. Andy, that's never been used.
The much more common way to change the Constitution is through informal processes or traditions. And this is where we change the meaning of the Constitution through everyday governmental decisions. The best example we can come up with is political parties. The Constitution really references political parties not at all, and yet political parties are an integral part of our government and have been since the very beginning because of just the traditional way of governing, and parties make that process easier.
There are other ways to informally change the original meanings of the U.S. Constitution. Take Congress, for instance. Congress can pass a law. For instance, the Leave No Child Behind law, which expanded the role of the federal government in education in ways that the framers never anticipated. Andy, you would say laws like Leave No Child Behind is an example of how our Constitution has been changed by Congress without the use of a formal amendment.
Presidential actions, particularly during crises, can really change the Constitution informally. It could be FDR's internment of Japanese Americans during World War II, or President Bush opening Guantanamo Bay's detention center after 9/11 are examples of informal changes to the Constitution by presidential action.
How about the Supreme Court and some of their landmark cases, not the least of which was Brown v. Board of Education in 1954. Andy, integrating the public schools, no mention of that in the U.S. Constitution, but clearly our country was set off on a new course because of that constitutional case in the United States Supreme Court. We're talking about how to change the U.S. Constitution. Clearly, the amendment process was made difficult. The Founding Fathers were afraid of drastic and abrupt changes. Yet at the same time, we've seen a number of informal changes through the use of Congress, President, the courts, and political parties. Andy, is our Constitution a living document? We'll leave that debate up to you. We're the two teachers, and you've been schooled in Room to Be,
where there's always room to be an informed citizen.